Ranger Suarez officially signs with the Boston Red Sox. And I'll tell you why today's emotion in Philadelphia should be bittersweet, but there should definitely be some happiness and acceptance in there. We'll talk about it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, the number one sports podcast network, Locked On Phillies, your number one place for regular offseason Philadelphia Phillies content. We're getting everything going, even though the season is still a couple months away. Appreciate you joining us. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic, doing sports talk radio here in Philly for over 6 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 5th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. We got the official news just a couple of minutes ago. Ranger Suarez, no longer a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. He is signing with the Boston Red Sox on a 5-year, $130 million deal. We're going to start today's episode breaking down everything that I think, and I think you should think, about Ranger Suarez signing with the Red Sox. We're also going to get into a conversation about JT Realmuto. Not the what's the latest. That is part of it. But he's starting to really tick me off. And I'm not a guy that gets annoyed at the players that I root for easily. He's really starting to annoy me. What is it about JT Realmuto's current situation that's got me a little bit heated today? And what's the latest on Bo Bichette? Because we're going to have Bo Bichette watch pretty much continuing through the next however long it takes until he either signs here or signs elsewhere. So that's what's on the docket for today's show. Speaking of signing elsewhere, let's talk about Ranger Suarez. So John Heyman first reported the deal, then Jeff Passan first reported the terms. It's a 5-year, $130 million deal for Ranger Suarez to go to the Boston Red Sox. No opt-outs, long-term deal for him to end up in Boston. For some people today, you might see that news and be heartbroken. Say, man, the Phillies really didn't bring back Ranger Suarez. I love the guy. Why did they not re-sign him? If that's the case, you either haven't been listening to Locked On Phillies or you haven't been hearing what I've been saying on Locked On Phillies, because pretty much all season long, I've been telling you, like, Ranger's not coming back. And this is not a victory lap of like see, I was right. The writing was on the wall for a while now. They didn't get an extension done with him in 2024 ahead of the season. They did get an extension done with Cristopher Sánchez. The second they hand that deal out to Cristopher Sánchez, who was a little bit less needing of a new contract and a long-term deal than Ranger, you realize that the Phillies have jumped their priorities. And when they jump priorities like that, that's them telling you, without specifically telling you, we're kind of okay with you walking at the end of your contract. So this has been going on for a while. And it's not that the Phillies don't like Ranger Suarez. It's that, one, he's talented enough as a left-handed arm that creates so much soft contact in a league where home runs are king, strikeouts are king on the other side. And to have that skill set that a lot of pitchers have lost, which is like, you don't have to miss bats. You just have to create soft contact with a lot of smart pitching, spots, movement. Ranger Suarez he's an incredibly valuable pitcher. So the idea that he was going to get a big money contract existed out there. And then he had a really strong 2025. The Phillies didn't want to commit long-term money to him because, one, the injury issues / inability to complete full seasons, like the lack of durability with Ranger Suarez is pretty much his only knock. And that's something that we've seen consistently throughout his career here in Philadelphia. So are you going to commit long-term money to a guy that you don't believe is going to be available throughout full seasons? Probably not, especially when you have so much money already committed. It doesn't mean he's not talented, though, which is why other organizations who are more needy at starting pitcher were going to take a risk, and a valuable risk, on Ranger Suarez, if you can even call it that. So all of this stuff is what went into me telling you, I don't think the Phillies are going to re-sign him. In fact, I'm pretty much 100% confident they won't. Now he goes to the Red Sox. And let's take a look at the contract real quick. 5 years, $130 million. Where is that as far as like expensive versus cheap versus kind of right in the middle for guys? It's $26 million a year annual value, or average annual value. Couldn't remember the word average for a second. When you look at the 5-year deal, it's not exactly cheap. In fact, that's right around what you're looking at for Bryce Harper right now. So one, that tells you, okay, Bryce probably was right when he said, hey, I'd like a little bit more money. Two, Ranger is getting paid. So the Phillies would have to commit a sizable amount of money to a guy in a rotation where they're already paying Nola, already paying Wheeler, already paying Sanchez, probably going to look to pay Luzardo. Like, you can't just lock down 5 starters long term. It's not realistic. So someone had to be a casualty. And because Ranger has not been durable enough, he seemed like the likely casualty. And he's getting to the market at a bad time for the Phillies to re-sign him and a good time for him to make the money elsewhere. So this is not a split. This is not the Phillies gave up on Ranger Suarez. The Phillies chose someone else over Ranger Suarez. Hell, if they chose anybody over Ranger, it's Cristopher Sánchez. And he was just a runner-up for National League Cy Young. So I can't fault the organization for that. They were right. And that doesn't mean if the bar is this guy was just runner-up to Paul Skeens for the Cy Young Award that, oh, well, Ranger stinks, and that's how that played out, right? Like the bar was really high. The Phillies made a prudent decision. And this is just the nature of baseball, the nature of professional sports. You can't keep everybody. Rangers got to walk. So it sucks. I've told you in a previous episode how much I love Ranger Suarez. He's a very, very special player in this era of Philadelphia Phillies baseball for a lot of reasons. Closing out the NLCS to send them to the World Series for the first time since 2009. Magical moment in 2022. Kind of the start of the theme of the Ranger Suarez era. He was a guy that pitched out of the pen when needed. Started. Did everything the Phillies asked. Never complained once. He was the consummate professional. For a guy who, for his skills we see now, probably should have said, hey, give me the ball every 5 days. I'm a starter. He never did that. It didn't matter if the ball got hit back at him 200 miles an hour or 2 miles an hour. He was always the coolest, calmest fielder that I think I've ever seen of a baseball, especially from a position like pitcher where so many people say, hey, we don't really want them fielding. They're not the true athletes. Ranger Suarez is an athlete. I'll tell you what. I mean, just everything that this guy was about, from that down to the littlest things, like how he celebrated wins and big-time wins. Guy loved the party. His teammates clearly loved him. The fan base loved him. This is a dude that, when I look back on this era of Phillies baseball, he's going to hold a very, very special place for me in my memory of what the past, well, let's just call it 5 years have been for this organization. I think every fan should feel that way. So why should there be some happiness in there? Why should there be some joy on a day where such a beloved Philly officially signs with another team? Because it's not the New York Mets. We were almost in a doomsday scenario, folks. If Ranger Suarez, if that notification today had said Ranger Suarez signs with the Mets, you know what this is? I'm spending this entire podcast talking about why I hate him now, why I have to hate him now, why deeply ingrained in who I am. My DNA says I have to hate the Mets and anybody who ever plays for that organization. You see how tough that is because of how much I love Ranger. Going to Boston, this is almost ideal because it's an American League team. It's a team that I think Philadelphians can relate with. I'm not saying we're also Red Sox fans, but there's kind of a kindred spirit between the Phillies and the Red Sox. We hate Boston in some sports. Sixers Celtics, heated rivalry. Eagles Patriots, no love lost there. Flyers Bruins. It's not exactly like they're buddy-buddy. But Phillies Red Sox, because of the NL-AL split league nature of baseball, there's always kind of been that one little point of respect there in the Boston-Philadelphia rivalry. You're not going to see them often. The Phillies do play in Boston this year, and they play all teams, but this year the games against Boston are on the road. So You get a chance to go up there, and if you haven't been to Fenway, maybe the excuse is, hey, you'll get to see Ranger. Maybe he'll even get a chance to pitch. But Ranger Suarez taking the mound in a Boston Red Sox uniform, yeah, I'll miss him here, but that's not going to make me upset. Like I already texted one of my friends who's a big Boston fan, and he's a Red Sox fan through and through. Baseball's his favorite sport. I was like, so help me God, if I hear you say one negative word about Ranger Suarez, you better take damn good care of him. And that's just kind of how I feel. I can have that fun relationship and still watch the games, and it's not going to like heavily bother me. If it was the Mets, I would have lost my mind. And I got to imagine there would be some folks in the Phillies organization that would feel a certain way too. It's not just random fans saying I could never root for him again. I'm happy Ranger got paid. He's very deserving. It's a sad day that he no longer officially pitches for the Philadelphia Phillies. But this is a moment that I wouldn't have been able to have if he went to New York. Ranger, on behalf of everybody here in Philadelphia, we wish you all the best. Thank you so much for all the great memories over the years. Hopefully it goes well for you in Boston. Congrats on the life-changing amount of money that you just signed a deal for. And I hope you keep doing your thing. We're never going to forget what you contributed to this team. And we're never going to forget the runs that this team went on with you being a big part of it. And that's something that will stick with me forever, and it should stick with Phillies fans forever. So a sad day, a bittersweet day, but at least it wasn't the Mets. Coming up, we're going to talk about the latest on JT Realmuto's situation as the Bo Bichette tornado rages around the Philadelphia Phillies world. What is the latest on JT Realmuto? John Heyman, who initially reported the Phillies' interest in Bo Bichette, had something interesting, kind of a like offhanded comment about JT Realmuto and the situation with him. And this is true. Whew, Jay, you got some explaining to do. We'll talk about it as we continue today's episode. First, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel, though, because there's a great opportunity with the postseason going on in the NFL. Wildcard round's over, divisional round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. You're going to see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts each and every game day. And you can apply those to the bets you like the most. It's not, hey, take this bet that is never going to hit and you get extra money if in like a snowball's chance in hell that it actually does hit. No, this is take the bets you're already going to make, apply the profit boost, make more money on your wins because of it. It's a great deal by FanDuel, and they'll give you more juice on the bets you already like I don't know, back in momentum, defense, quarterback, whatever you stake as important in the NFL playoffs. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. I also want to tell you about our Everydayer Club here on the Locked On Podcast Network and on Locked On Phillies. If you haven't already, you should go and check it out. What our Everydayer Club is an opportunity for you to take your fandom to a next level. Signing up for it will get you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Phillies, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. And it's also going to get you an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server. So if you're not familiar with Discord servers, it's basically like an online chat room where there are other fans. All the hosts are on there, like yours truly, and hosts from other teams and other sports. And you get a chance to bounce around in there and have commentary with people. So let's say, just for an example, you're at work today, sitting in an office, and the Ranger Suarez news breaks. And you look to your left, and Janet from accounting doesn't like baseball. And you look to your right, and Phil from HR doesn't like baseball. You're just sitting there like, I got to talk to somebody about this. The Discord server is a great opportunity for you to have constant dialogue with other fans, hosts, everything to keep you updated on what's going on. And also just, it's a fun community to be a part of. So go to lockedonphillies.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Ranger Suarez, no longer an everydayer with the Philadelphia Phillies. He signs with the Boston Red Sox. JT Realmuto, maybe heading down that path as well. Not necessarily with the Red Sox, but they could. The Ranger Suarez news, by the way, the first signing by the Red Sox this offseason. Wild. They were getting testy up there in Boston, especially with the Bregman news. JT, I'm getting a little bit testy with the JT news. So Jon Heyman has been talking a lot about the Phillies and their focus on Bo Bichette. Now, I told you yesterday, if you didn't see our episode yesterday, always consider the source. Not all MLB insider reports are created equal. These guys have their sources that they use. It's not a full spectrum of every possible person involved in any circumstance, right? For example, Jon Heyman is a guy that historically a lot of people have pointed to as getting his information from, when it comes to the Philadelphia Phillies, Dave Dombrowski. That's the thing. This news is coming from somewhere. Heyman's not just making it up. Just like Ken Rosenthal isn't just making it up, Buster Olney, Jason Stark, and all of these guys have their guys. Some are the same, some are different. So when Jon Heyman puts stuff out, part of my thought process is always, okay, probably got this from Dave Dombrowski or someone close to Dave Dombrowski, or at least if that's the case, what would this be indicating? Which is why I've been on the side of, hey, Bo Bichette, I think that's a smokescreen by the Philadelphia Phillies to try and motivate JT Realmuto. I may be way off on this one, though, because Jon Heyman also mentioned in his most recent Bo Bichette report, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Bo Bichette portion in a little bit, but this is new news on JT Realmuto. The Phillies have reportedly already offered JT Realmuto a 3-year contract, and that offer has been out for a while. And that is going to tick me off. Not from the Phillies' perspective, from JT's. You are going to be 35 before the season starts this year. The Phillies have bent over backwards to give you every opportunity to play and win in this city. You were traded for, then re-signed to a lucrative contract, and you have been beloved by this fan base and this team. You are, hands down, in my opinion, the best catcher in Philadelphia Phillies history. And you want 3 years at the age of 35. And while people in this city who are Philadelphia Phillies fans, media members, a lot of folks scream from the mountaintops, and Philly's pretty flat, from the rooftops that you should not get a 3-year deal. This organization offers it to you and you're like, yeah, I got to think about it. Where else do you think you're getting a 3-year deal? I haven't exactly heard anywhere that there's a robust market for JT Realmuto. I think he's a really good player. I think there are other teams interested. But my thought was always that, well, the sticking point must be the Phillies are not willing to go to 3 years. JT wants 3 years, and he won't take 2. And if that's the case, so be it. There's a big difference between 3 years and 2 years, and getting that extra time out as sirens in the background go off. Welcome to living in Philadelphia. In the 3-year versus 2-year argument, I can understand JT wanting that extra year, right? Because it's such more, what's the word I'm looking for? Stability, safety. With that being an extra year on the contract, like he might be on 1-year deals for the rest of his career after this. Heck, this might be his last deal in baseball, depending on how everything goes. So you want to squeeze as much juice out of it as you can. But the Phillies have already given you what you've basically wanted, and you're still waiting. If this was catcher X from Team Y, and they're being really stubborn and they're stringing the Phillies along, whatever. Okay, I get it. You're a free agent trying to drum up support in your market. That happens all the time. But this is a dude who's been with this organization for a long time, has a lot of signature moments with the Philadelphia Phillies. He is a fan favorite in his own right, just like we talked about with Ranger Suarez. And if he's gotten what he's wanted and that report is correct, and there's been a 3-year deal on the table for JT Realmuto, and he's just saying, nah, I'm good, like come back with something even better. The dollar amount now is not good enough. Like that is, I'll be more mad at JT, and I want him back with the Phillies in some capacity because I think Stubbs Marchand is not going to get it done behind the dish. Like I want JT back. I've been telling you that this whole offseason. But if he's being stubborn like that, good riddance. Now, remember, this is ifs and buts. This is hypothetical. If we find out that it's a 3-year deal with like a $6 million AAV, like that's embarrassingly low. We don't know the dollar amount. Jon Heyman's also a guy that, like we said, he's a Dave Dombrowski guy. You're now hearing some news on Bo Bichette gaining momentum, which we'll talk about. And we've been talking about maybe part of what Dave Dombrowski wants to do here is be like, yeah, let the people know I did offer him a 3-year deal and he hasn't gotten back to me. Not that it's false, like that they're lying and creating this out of thin air, but more that, hey, there could be something more to this, but just put out the 3-year deal part so the fan base starts pressuring JT a little bit more and the court of public opinion starts pressuring him more, which I guess if that's the case, great work, I'm falling for it. But we don't know that. I can only react to the news that we have at hand. And I feel like if I was a 35-year-old catcher that is offensively declined, injuries have become a major concern for me because of the wear and tear of my time playing that position, and I got offered a 3-year contract with a World Series contender and a place that I'm pretty comfortable playing, I would sign that deal before the ink is dry on the print. But that's just me. I would love for JT to stop being stubborn, but if this is how he's treating his business and the way I'm portraying it right now seems accurate, I'm not going to be happy with him when this is all said and done. And that sucks because the Phillies, I think, have they earned that right to have their players who have been here for a while treat them with more respect than what JT Realmuto is treating them with in negotiations? Maybe you say yes. Maybe if you're the way the Phillies have handled stuff and they always come up short, and why would you want to come to this team because they're just going to choke again? Maybe you feel that JT is well within his rights. But I think he's being unfair here if that stuff is all true. And I can understand why the Phillies either want to pivot to Bo Bichette or want to make him feel, him being JT, very uncomfortable with the idea, yeah, we can move on because you're kind of being pretty annoying with this. So that's my take on the latest with the JT Realmuto situation. Again, that's coming out from Jon Heyman. I have not seen like a definitive report on years and money and everything on an offered contract to JT. You normally don't get that much detail on deals that are not accepted, like deals just out on the table. So I don't know that we'll ever see that. But I'm starting to – I went from you got to re-sign JT to you're probably forced to re-sign JT even though I don't love it, to now to the Bo Bichette thing where it's like, oh, are they pretending not to sign JT? I don't know if I want him back anymore if he's going to be like that. So this situation has gone haywire from the start, and we'll see how it plays out for the Philadelphia Phillies. But if it plays out with Bo Bichette as a member of the team, which the insiders will tell you, it seems increasingly likely by the day, that could be a benefit in the long term for the Philadelphia Phillies anyway. What is the latest on the Bo Bichette news? We're going to pretty much be talking about it every day. There's nothing too new, but a little nugget that continues to show further interest and further momentum. Momentum here being the key word. We'll talk about it as we continue today's episode. By the way, folks, if you haven't yet, I would love if you could subscribe to the YouTube. Yes, you can watch Locked On Phillies on YouTube. Subscribing is free and easy. All it's going to do is get you notifications when new episodes are posted. You don't have to watch, though. If you can't watch and you want to just listen, we're available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're doing that, I would love if you could rate and review. So Jon Heyman, prior to that little aside about JT Realmuto, the main point of his most recent comments were that the Phillies and Bo Bichette are gaining momentum towards a deal. Both sides seem to be optimistic. It's a whole bunch of agent, insider, offseason speak. So let me break this down for you. Gaining momentum. What does that mean? In the simplest form, it means things are, if they were a stock, the arrow would be going up. And this is important, right? Because you don't normally, with a guy like Bo Bichette, like if you're him, the smartest thing to do if you're trying to increase your market is get to a point of interest with teams, but then keep them on the hook, right? You want to say, okay, I'll take the meeting with the Phillies. I like where your numbers are at. I like where the organization is telling me I got some interest. You got some interest in me. Hold, please. I'll be back with you in a couple of days or a week or a couple of weeks, depending on what point of the offseason it is. And then you go to another team. You say, hey, here's what they're offering me, but I'm really interested in what you have to say. And then when they get to the point the Phillies are at, you say, hold, please. And then you go to another team. And you just drum up all of this interest, and that way you get the bigger market. Like, that's just economy 101, economics 101, I should say. It's just creating that more demand leads to a higher price. Simple stuff. So when you hear momentum is heading in the right direction, they're building momentum, that means that things are progressing, if we are to believe the reports, right? If it was, hey, I'll get back with you, I got to hear from these other teams, it would be a stalemate. Progressing towards potential contract talks getting done or a deal actually getting done shows you that there is motion there. And with that motion, that's something that I wouldn't expect to hear about where Bo Bichette should be when it comes to the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, the Phillies, all of these teams that could be interested, the who's who of the big payrolls in baseball. Now, do the Red Sox lose a little bit of luster in the Bo Bichette conversation with throwing $130 million over 5 years at Ranger Suarez? Not necessarily. They have plenty of payroll to get this done. Their ownership has been called cheap recently by the fan base. So maybe that takes them out of the Bo Bichette sweepstakes. And if Ranger Suarez leaving and signing with the Red Sox removes one of the biggest competitors to the Phillies signing a middle infielder of the future, well, then Ranger Suarez becomes even more beloved in this city. It's rarely that simple, but that is something to keep an eye on. So momentum is a good thing. Stability would be a good thing. Like, no news is good news. Some news is great news. That's kind of the breakdown of the way that I view these offseason negotiations between star players and big-time organizations like the Philadelphia Phillies. So for all you Bo leavers out there, that's something that you should really hang your hat on. There's a lot of smoke, and it's not like the fire that just kind of like crackles with the embers that creates smoke. No, there's somebody there fanning the flames right now. At least that's what John Heyman's telling us. And oftentimes, you know the expression, when there's smoke, there's fire. There's certainly some fire with the Philadelphia Phillies and Bo Bichette. I'll stick to the party line that I've established from the get-go here on Locked On Phillies. I don't think it's going to happen because there still seem to be too many factors at play with what you'd have to do to move players and create opportunity, like the other players in the market being players as in teams. There's just so much that has to fall the Phillies' way. And it feels very atypical of how they've approached the past couple of off seasons. I'd love to be wrong. I really would be. So we'll see how that all plays out. Now, on Friday's episode, we always do our responses to our off the poll question. So I put out a poll question on X, on our Twitter account at LO_Phillies. I retweet it from my own at Connor Thomas 975. So you can find it if you follow either of those accounts. The Twitter poll that we're going to put out for Friday is going to be Ranger Suarez related. So I'm not sure what the moments are yet, but I'm going to do some research and I'm going to put the top 4 Ranger Suarez moments as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. And I'm going to ask you what your number 1 favorite Ranger Suarez memory is in his time here in Philadelphia. Because one segment at the start of a show is not enough for me to give enough homage to Ranger Suarez for what he did here in Philly. I mean, this guy, he may be one of the more underrated members of this Philadelphia Phillies core that went through this great stretch and became a contender once again after a decade-long playoff drought. So I'd love to hear what your favorite memories are from Ranger. If you want to leave them in the comments to help influence how I put that poll together, I would love to hear that from you as well. Just give me a little bit more material to work with. But that's going to be our question, and we'll respond to that in the final segment of Friday's episode. Also, just like anything else, if Bo Bichette news breaks, we're going to be doing like a full episode on that. So all of this is pending, no deal yet with Bo Bichette. Developing situation that We'll see how long it develops for. But that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. And check out our Everydayer Club. Would love if you became a part of that. And I will talk to you on Friday, unless Bo Bichette signs, and I'll talk to you whenever he does on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.